The following podcast episode includes discussions on sensitive topics, including suicide and mental health issues. Audience discretion is advised. If you or someone you know needs support, please contact a mental health professional or helpline. Resources are available at the end of this podcast and in the show notes.
You're your own person. You're on this journey of life literally with yourself the whole time. So, whatever benefits you can do for yourself, whether it's health or education or surrounding yourself with the right people, you as a person are the one who's going to benefit, and then you pass that on to others. So look after yourself first, and then work on yourself, and then project that out to everyone else and the community and what you can do for others.
You're listening to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard.
Hello and welcome to Property Investor Tales, stories from the front yard, where I get to speak to property investors from around Australia about their investing journey. My name's Tabitha Bright and I'm the head of the advising team here at Positive Real Estate, where we help people build wealth through property. With over 8,000 clients across Australia and New Zealand, there are some incredible stories to tell, which hopefully make your investing journey that little bit easier and will inspire you along the way. So my guest today is Emily Miller, and we talk about her investing journey and the deeply moving motivation that has sparked her many adventures. So please enjoy this conversation with Emily. Hey everyone, Tabitha here from our Property Investor Tales podcast, and today I have Emily Miller with me, and she's not only one of our clients but has also just recently joined the team and is busy in training to learn to be a coach and all of the good stuff. She's doing a fabulous job. But she's got a particularly poignant story that might resonate with a few of you guys. And so today, Emily has very generously opted to share some of her journey with investing, what motivates her, her and her husband.
Partner, hello.
Oh, lovely.
13 years though, feels like a husband.
Well, it's all the same thing these days. Vin and I didn't get married. We were together, I think, 16, 17 years before we decided to get married, and it was one of those things that just felt right to do at the time, and prior to that it hadn't bothered us either way. So it's
that's where we're at.
Yeah, each to their own. We had houses and children and all sorts of stuff. So I think a lot of that is often more binding, the shared journey. But
100%.
Oh,
Yeah,
lovely.
agree.
So hello. But let's talk about you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tab. I appreciate you having me on board. Honestly, really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's we always appreciate the stories because, whether the small lessons, whether it's, big stuff that has happened to people, it's always good to feel that we're not in a vacuum, doing this stuff on our own, and shared stories are a great way of normalising the experience of investing, because it's not always straightforward, and sometimes what motivates us can be wide and varied. And often comes with its own story, as we're going to find out a little bit more about you. So tell us, Em, what drove you guys to investing, and tell us a little bit about your life. I mean, you've got such an interesting story. I don't even actually know where to start. But let's start, I guess, let's go back to the beginning. What motivated you to look for financial solutions?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking about this yesterday, knowing that we were going to do the podcast today. And I think concretely, the first ever time I thought about property investing, I was, how old? I was 20, 20.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Young.
And there's a backstory to that, but I came into a little bit of money. I came into $17,000, and I thought about using that money for a good purpose, and I thought property was the good purpose. I didn't spend it on property. I spent it on a trip overseas to France, where I met my beautiful partner of 13 years, the one we've been talking about, and I would not ever trade any of that money for that trip, for that piece of property. Like, Aloe's worth so much more than that to me. But then later on, so the second time it kind of came around and hit me like it was the next thing to do. I was 30, so it's 10 years later. I'm 34 now, so it's been, 4 years of really trying to tackle into it. And I was reading a lot of books. Anyone who knows me on a personal level knows that I read a lot of books, try and self-educate myself. And it started there, reading Positively Geared, would you believe it? People may know that. And I thought that's going to spark my education and put me on the right route. So that was 4 years ago. And yeah, how much I've learned in that time has skyrocketed due to becoming a client. Yeah.
Oh, fabulous. And so where did you end up after reading the book? What happened?
Yeah, so in the book, so basically I thought if I want to buy property, I need to know how to do it properly. And I had these notions of you needed property in a good place. It needed to have good fundamentals, close to shops and schools and all of that. But then at the time, and this is crazy, I thought that all of the growth and all of those fundamentals were out in little small towns, which is now I know that's something flawed. Flawed in where I'm at in my journey, right? And so I thought, I don't care where it is, but as long as the numbers line up, I'll purchase a property. So at the time, I think we were talking about, towns outside of Sydney, that type of thing. And that makes sense. But, after realising that I was lost in, had probably too much self-education and not enough directed education, I decided to take another step, and an ad popped up on Facebook for positive real estate, and I thought, you know what, I'll sign up. What harm can it do, kind of thing. Yeah. And the day of that first webinar rolled around, and I almost missed it. But I got the text message reminder, and I thought, oh shit, that's that bloody webinar that I signed up to, and I better go along to it. And then I sat down and I said, oh, Aloe, can you just cook tonight and whatever, we share it, and I'll watch this webinar. And then he kept coming over to the laptop saying, I imitate his French accent. He's French, by the way. He's like, oh, this actually sounds really good. This lady knows what she's talking about. It makes sense. And then we signed up as clients, like with Megan, so Megan Wolfenden. And that's 2 years ago. We've been clients since then. And yeah, Books can teach you a lot, that's for sure, and I'm the first one to admit that, but there's nothing like being surrounded by experts to put you in the right direction.
Yeah. Not dissimilar to you, Vin and I had read a lot of books, and we started with all the stalwarts of the time, because I'm a fair bit older than you, and there wasn't a lot on the internet. There weren't even many groups like us back then, and we read all those books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And
absolutely, yep, that one's on the list too. Yeah.
Even just stuff like How to Win Friends and Influence People. All of the classics, and we looked at everything from, like yourself, small towns to, and we actually invested in a lot of small towns. I've probably strategically sold, I'm just trying to think if I've got anything left in a small town. I don't think I do now. Strategically sold everything and replaced it with a better class of asset for myself in major capital cities. And sometimes that means selling 2 for 1. But certainly the capital growth in a capital city does outstrip over the long term.
Yeah,
there's no
100%.
doubt. Yeah.
The motivator at the time was to do duplexes, right? That was the big thing, was to build a duplex, and then, you know, you get a lot of value out of selling the two assets. And see, I had no idea where to start. I had not I didn't know a builder. I didn't know how to build a duplex. I didn't even know how to buy a piece of land. Yeah. So it was all very scary. But I knew that if we were going to do it, we had to do it right, and we had to get the experts around us. So,
yeah, well, you lose a lot of time in the market, and you add time to your journey when you learn by trial and error. And there's that saying that Jason is very fond of, which is, and I do think it's a very valid comment. You pay for your education whether you choose to or not, and you either pay to learn something or you pay by experience. And I always liken property education to, and I don't understand why people, do I understand? Not really. I don't understand why people find it hard to pay for property education and wealth education, like genuine education, because I think, you know, you wouldn't go to a surgeon that it was self-taught. Yeah. And I think, you know, when you're dealing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, the way people are prepared to essentially gamble with no experience. Is that your pussycat?
I knew he would get up.
I had the same problem. Mine came in howling before. Yeah, the way people are prepared to gamble hundreds of thousands of dollars to take a punt. I do find that extraordinary.
The fee at Positive Real Estate. So this is the thing. As I was reading Positively Geared, that was like a reference at the time. They suggested to reach out to a buyer's agent, right?
Yeah.
So I did that. I reached out to a buyer's agent, and they were going to charge upwards of 10 to 12. He's back. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
10 to $12,000 for one purchase. Yeah. And I thought it felt like a lot of time at the money, but there was that mindset that at least you would be getting a great asset because they would do the research for you. But there's no onus on them to make sure that the return is enough, that it really does have all the fundamentals, like who is making their viewpoint on what makes a good asset. So it had a lot of bias, and was it vetted? Had they done all the due diligence? I'm sure they have, but now that I'm 2 years deep into the education with Positive, I really see it could have been two very different outcomes had I gone down the buyer's agent. And they could have bought me an amazing asset, and I could have been totally blind to the whole process. Yeah. But now I've spent the exact same money in an education platform, and I feel like I'm now 10 years ahead of where I might have been, and I know what's going on. I think that's a really important that's just my personality. I don't want to feel like I'm a passenger in my own experience. So I want to take control. I want to, if I'm going to learn about property, I'm going to learn about property. Yeah. So I feel like I'm a part of the process rather than just paying for a service. Yeah. And it's going to have so many benefits long term as the further and further we get into the portfolio creation, rather than just paying the buyer's agent off each time.
Yeah, we like to think of our program as a portfolio builder. We teach you to build a portfolio, which is very different to buying a property. And because as you go along the journey of building a portfolio, there's all kinds of challenges that come up. It's inevitable. In this market today, mostly around affordability and servicing and what you can actually purchase. You may have all the desire and even the deposit funds to build a portfolio of 3, 4, 5 properties, but actually getting the banks to agree to lend you money can be a big part of the problem for many people. And so it's then, how do you navigate that? How do you get yourself ready? What time frame? Like, how do we shorten the time frame to get you into the market? All of that stuff is critical, and you have to be surrounded, whether it's Positive real estate, whether it's whoever it is, a team that are experienced in that and have seen people, I think the thing that always gives me confidence recommending Positive, I mean, I'm obviously very biased having been here for so long, but, we have navigated through GFC, COVID, the APRA whole crackdown on lending. There's so much that the mining boom and bust, different markets going up and down, and we've assisted clients on their journey through that whole journey, and it's that experience I think that we bring to the table. But I could go on about Positive forever, and I think people probably aren't interested in my viewpoint on positive real estate and why I think we're so awesome. I'm interested, are you happy to share a little bit about what motivated you to go on the journey to begin with? Like what was important to you about wealth creation?
Yeah, so it started when I was a little bit younger. If I can backtrack just to paint a picture, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of 4 kids, had a really loving upbringing. I grew up in Gundawindi, which is on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. It's a cotton town. I still have a lot of family out there. We do go out for the odd Easter or Christmas or whatever.
Fabulous.
Dad had an agribusiness, and I'd seen from a young age the benefits of running your own business. I didn't understand, but Dad always had the latest toys. He was probably a man above his generation, but he always had the latest technology for his agribusiness. He was very innovative, and always thinking at cutting edge, like what was going to make a better product. So I saw that investment in, making things better for yourself can pay off, because then you get all these nice things. Like we had the nicest car, in the street or whatever. We had, a fishing boat, and we had all these lovely things, and it was fantastic. Now, the caveat to that is Mum and Dad ended up separating for other reasons. I say this is true as anything, it's not normal. It's not uncommon for couples to separate, families to separate. I think, separation rate is over 50% these days. I'm sure someone has the real figure.
Yep.
So family unit kind of separated, and I ended up living with my mum, just because that's the way it was at the time. Most of the kids went to go live with their mum. Yeah. And then in the separation, and I think a lot of people listening can resonate, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. I was quite immune to it as a kid. I was only 9. Mum and Dad protected us a lot from kind of what went on, but at the same time, you're acutely aware that your situation is changing. You're acutely aware that, you don't have the same things anymore. And it wasn't because one parent or the other was siphoning money off. It was not like that. It's just a family that separates. There's collateral damage, there's financial stuff that happens, and the situation changes.
It's very hard financially.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love Mum and Dad, and I saw in the years that followed that their separation was a really good thing eventually. It feels hard seeing your family unit separate, but Mum was a better person, Dad was a better person. But during that time, I went and lived with Mum, and things were really tight. Mum, being a woman of her generation, she's born in 1962, she had always worked for Dad's agribusiness, and, except when she, prior to meeting him and whatever. But, women of that age, they're not necessarily getting the same super, they had a different setup, So she kind of found herself at 40 years old going back out into the workforce, getting not her first job by any means, but going out and doing it on her own, and realising just, it's really tough. And Dad was the same. He then didn't have his admin person at work trying to do all the paperwork and keep the ship afloat, because that was Mum's real skill set, keeping things on the rails. However, throughout that process, we came short of cash. And, there were times there with Mum and I when we were living together where, and I know Mum is okay with me sharing this, but, we had a couple dollars at the end of the week. And the decision was, and we laugh about it now, but the decision was, do we put that $2.50 in the petrol tank so she can drive me to school and then pick me up that afternoon? Or does she give me the $2.50 to get a bus ticket to catch to school and then come up? It was that slim. And so living in that week-to-week mindset of like, we don't know how much money's coming in at the end of the week, scared the shit out of me. Sorry, Tab. Like it scared me. Not having money is one of the scariest things that I've experienced in my life. Now, I know what I look like. I know that I have a certain appearance. People may not feel that that is an experience that could apply to someone like me, but it does. And my appearance today reflects my desire to appear like I have my shit together, We do these funny things to keep ourselves afloat. And for me, it was, no matter what happened, no matter how much money was in the bank at the end of the day, like keep yourself, keep pride if you can. And I think that's probably the downfall of some people, putting too much pride associated with their money and foregoing other things. But yeah, not having money as a kid was really friggin' scary, really scary. And as I got older, the situation got worse. Mum was actually able to purchase a property through the settlement and with Dad, but for reasons that are her own, she lost that property, and we had to move out from one week to another. Like, this is traumatizing stuff when you're a teenager and all of a sudden, wait, I thought this was our house, and you don't understand the financials that are going on in the background because you're too young. But then all of a sudden Mum's saying, well, we've got to move out. All right, well, what's going on? Well, we have to move out. And it's
Very
bloody
tough.
Scary.
Very tough. Very tough. But
Yeah.
it's not an uncommon journey, and often people look at where people are today, and they make assumptions that people have had it easier, or they've had a better time of it, or they've come with some form of silver spoon. And in some ways, my own journey is not dissimilar to yours, but from your mother's perspective, in that once again, I came from an exceedingly loving family. Like, my parents were, we were always told you can do whatever you want to do, you can be whatever you want to be. And it's amazing what our brains do, because I turned that into pressure that I had to achieve. And so I went a little bit off the rails. Some of you listening might have heard some of these stories. But to cut a very long story short, and to empathise with your experience and to normalise money challenges and maybe the motivations for many of us to change our circumstances. I got married young, got separated young. It was not a happy marriage, and found myself a single parent with no skills, no degree, nothing behind me at all, no cash. And I was doing an apprenticeship. I remember I was earning $21,000 a year, and out of that I was paying $350 a month in childcare. And by the time I paid my rent and everything, I didn't have money. I didn't have enough money to buy a fridge. I was living in a bed sit with my daughter. I didn't have enough money to buy a fridge. I had $60 a week to spend on food for us both. And I bought flour, UHT milk, cheese, and some fruit like bananas that would last a long time. And we used to make pancakes. And the cheese, I just would buy a small pack because it would go off if you left it out for too many nights. And that's how we lived. I didn't have even a fridge. And it was the most humbling experience, and it is the scariest experience. And I was proud. I did not tell anyone. I did not share it. I hid it from my parents and my family, and who would have helped, but I didn't want help. I was too proud. When I got married young, everyone was like, don't do it, it will be a mistake. And so I had this whole thing around, I didn't want to admit a mistake. But now I share as many of my mistakes as possible, because I believe that mistakes don't make us who we are. Our stumbles, our falls aren't important in anything other than, A, we can share them for the good of everybody where it's pertinent, and B, if you can frame it right for yourself, they build resilience and give you compassion and empathy, and I think that's really important. So
absolutely,
thank you
Tab.
for sharing your story, and I'm just adding mine to it, not as a one-up or a I've done it too, but just to normalise it out there for people, that if you're in a place where you're struggling right now financially and you're looking for motivation and wondering how you're ever going to bridge this gap, it's just small steps and determination and finding the right people to hang out with and finding somewhere inside of yourself that core belief that that you can change your circumstances, because when we own them, we have the responsibility then, and from a responsibility perspective and platform, we can then make the changes that we need to, that move us forward. And so tell me, from there, what happened? So obviously that's had quite a impact on you, the struggle, that uncertainty, that fear of not having that stability over that incredibly tricky time anyway as a teenager. I mean, teens are horrendous anyway.
Teenagers, as it is.
Yeah.
So I look.
Yeah.
So I look back, and it made me realise that if and this has got, it's no backlash to my family or whatsoever, but my independence, and in the wake of mum and dad's separation, skyrocketed, because mum didn't have time. Dad had raised us in the way that a dad raises kids, right? He's kind of there and having fun, whatever, but he wasn't the one, washing our clothes or whatever, or getting us to school. So, when we would go and visit him on the weekends, we would essentially turn up and he would just be like, okay, well, let's hang out and we'll have fun. We're like, oh, this is great. And then we'd go home to mum. She's like, no. But it's different. But the independence skyrocketed. So mum and dad separated at 9, and things that seem, trivial now are things that actually made me grow the hell up really quickly. So making sure that I had clean school clothes, for example, to go to school, making sure that if I packed my lunch, I would eat that day, because mum was doing a million things, and it's not neglect. She's just in so many different places at once. And dad was the same. He would just turn up and kind of let us loose. So I was like, shit, if I need to go on that school trip or do this thing, the onus is now on me. And reflecting as a 9, 10, 11, 12 through to year 12, it was things that I didn't see my friends doing so much, or if they did, they hid it and they did it in secret. But it made me think, okay, if I need to, if this is my existence, I need to take control. The onus is on me. I need to grow up. And so I can see, not in the same way because I wasn't raising a daughter, but, getting into university then, I didn't want to or couldn't rely on mum or dad, to pay rent or that type of thing. So I went out and got a job. I was doing full-time uni, and I was talking to one of my new colleagues about this the other day and how I just pinch myself. I'd never do this type of thing anymore, but, I'd be getting up at 6 a.m, getting to class by 8. I was in a very intensive program, so it was 8 till 6 p.m. We had a 1-hour lunch break at 1 o'clock. At 6 p.m, we were released out, and at 6:30 I started my shift at the cafe down the road. that morning I had pressed and ironed my uniform, which I hung up in the back of my car. I got changed in the back of my car, slipped all my shoes on, and then drove to the cafe where I worked till 11 p.m. They were wonderful and would often send us home with spare food for the rest of the day, and I'd go home and start the whole process again for 3 years straight. And I just think, and on top of that, like, it was a funny time because by then I was 18 and all my other friends were going out to the bars and stuff on the weekends. But on the weekends, I would start the 6 a.m. shift. I'd then work till 3 p.m. and then I'd have to be in bed by 9 because then I'd start the 6 a.m. shift again. And I couldn't go to the clubs because I'd be too friggin' tired to go to work. So the responsibility hit hard, and it always has, that, I can't go out and do all these fun things because I have financial responsibilities that are keeping me afloat, that keep me, and I was in a flat share with 3 of my schoolmates, and we're all kind of working and doing the same thing. But I don't know, I pinch myself now, but it did instill in me a massive responsibility for self. And, if you're the maker of your future and you can create it. Now, I'll jump now if I can, Tab, because it makes a lot of sense to what I said at the start of the podcast about wanting to buy that first property.
Yeah.
Through this whole journey, Mum and Dad were separated going along. There's a darker side to it, which I want to share only because of what you said, Tab, about normalising people's experiences in life. And it's scary sometimes to admit what happens to us or what happens to our family. But I hope to think that my experience might trigger something in someone else to make a change. But Mum and Dad separated for their own reasons. But in that separation, it triggered mental health issues for my dad. Him being a man of his generation, you'd never speak about anything to do with mental health ever. So Mum leaving him, because Mum did initiate the separation, caused him to spiral into a massive depression. And on multiple times while we were younger, he did try and take his life. So I can paint this picture where we're living on the outside what seemed to be a normal life because no one knew what was going on. We would sweep all of the dirt under the carpet or under the rug when people would come and visit, right? And us kids would put on a show. At least I certainly felt. I'm a pleaser, by the way. I know we did personality tests, but I'm certainly a pleaser. Like, that's who I am. So I would sweep all the turmoil underneath the rug when people would come and visit, or if my friends would come and visit, because it was just too scary to admit how bad things were. And seeing Dad go through his mental health challenges to the point where he wanted to take his own life. And this is a man who was full of life, who was full of adventure, who was the first person anyone thought of if they wanted to do something fun or adventurous. But the separation just broke his whole existence. And he got help eventually, but there was a time in my teenage years where I stopped visiting him because it was too scary for me to be exposed to, I suppose, what he might do.
Yeah.
And I know my siblings will feel, each had their own experience, but they know that that's the truth at the end of the day. It was scary as hell going through it.
I can imagine.
Dad eventually got help, right? And he became that same adventurous person that we all loved when we were kids.
Yeah.
But tragically, he died of a heart attack when I was 20.
Oh,
So
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
when we were rekindling a massive, beautiful relationship with our dad, each in our own way, he was taken from us. And that was the most traumatic experience I've had in my life. Through all of that, that's how I came into this $17,000 that I thought, what am I going to do? This was, my share of Dad's estate that got split up, and, There was the business that was going on, and this is real life for people. I know that there are mums and dads listening, or self-made businessmen and women that, you pass away if you don't have things set up the way that you should. It goes real pear-shaped real quick. And so when everything was said and done, each of us kids got $17,000 and we did what we wanted with it. This was the thing. Same deal with you, Tab. Like, this was a loving family. You were always allowed to do what if you want to go and be an astronaut, absolutely. You want to go climb that tree, go for it. There was no barrier. So with this 17,000, this precious egg, I thought, I've got to do something worthwhile. But that's when I had to make that choice, do I purchase this property, which I had no idea about. It's in Milton, by the way. I drive past it all the time in Brisbane. And the opposite was, well, maybe Dad would want me to live an adventurous existence, go out and grab life by the balls, so to speak, and go and live. Go and live the way that he lived to the fullest until his very last day on this planet. Like, the day that the weekend, so he passed away on a Monday, but the weekend before, he was down at the Gold Coast riding jet skis around the canals, and he'd driven home and he died in his sleep. And so, he was living life to the fullest, and that resonates with me, and it will resonate with me for the rest of my days, that I just make the most of it, because you never know what's going to happen.
No.
So this is kind of my crazy, and it's not uncommon, but this is my, financially driven but wanting to be free, adventurous life that I'm trying to make sense of.
Yeah.
And I've certainly found that property is the one thing that for me will tick all the boxes to get me the freedom to go out and continue to live a full life for me and the people around me.
Wow. And I mean, what a motivation, what a story, and thank you very much for sharing. And mental health is something that we don't talk about enough, particularly, I believe, for the farming community, particularly for young men. I know there's a massive challenge, or men, I should say, not young men necessarily, men. I know it's a massive challenge for Australia, the suicide rates for men. So please, there's no shame. I say this from the bottom of my heart. There's no shame in mental health challenges, and it's very important you get help, because there is support out there, and there's so much that can be done when you're in your darkest moments. So please do. I'm sure that the team will put some resources at the end of this episode for everybody. And alarmingly also, the rates of suicide for young women is increasing exponentially as well, I believe. I don't have facts or figures on that, but I was reading it somewhere recently. And I think, as a society, we are under a lot of pressure. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves. There's a whole new level of pressure that I wasn't quite the age of your mum, but I'm definitely well in between you and her, and closer to her. And I just know that what my childhood looked like and the pressures I had back then, and even as a young adult, I don't know. They just don't seem to be the same as the pressures on people today. And I think we have to give ourselves grace where we can in that space. And I love what you've done, how you've turned it into a motivation for yourself. And so you said you'd lived, and this episode's probably going to be a little bit longer than our normal episodes, so just bear with us. But I just wanted to talk, because you took that 17,000 and you chose an adventure, which I absolutely understand. So sometimes, and I say this to clients, sometimes there's what's right for investing and financial decisions, and then there's what's right for you and your goals. And as a coach, it's never my job to judge your values and your goals. My job is to make sure that the decisions you make, you understand both the upside of that decision and the trade-off. but it is your choice what trade-off you're willing to accept, because Emily could have taken that $17,000 and put it into a property, but the trade-off would have been that she didn't meet her partner, that she didn't get to experience the adventure that she went on, and she had no way of knowing that was going to be the trade-off. And hence, sometimes the challenge with making these decisions, it's those sliding door moments. You don't know. But our job as coaches is to ask you questions and help guide you through some of those decisions to make it easier for you to live the life that is important for you based on your values and your goals. And so tell us, because you have started the investing journey, obviously, amongst all of this as well, and you're still so young, and I say that with love and respect. You know, I share often, I'm 55, you're 34, I've got nearly 20 years on you. And so, you know, and I still think of myself as, I feel quite young, and I keep, like yourself, I like to keep fit, I like to move without pain. I'm not so worried about these wrinkles, I just think they're experience. But I do like to be able to move without pain, and I'm very fortunate that I can at 55. But I also invest in being able to move without pain, and I keep myself fit. For you, tell me, so you went on this big adventure, you met your partner, and then what happened from there? What shifted? When did you decide to invest? What has your investing journey looked like so far?
Yeah, so between 20 years old, got the $17,000. 21 years old, I left Australia. It was I think a 4-month trip to France. Came back, and then obviously met Alo, wonderful person. And so fast forward, and this is the crazy part. You touched on it before, but I had the choice, you know, what's right for me. Choose property or investment, or choose this no one knows what's going to happen, adventure of a lifetime kind of thing. I would make the same choice time and time again, because the person who left Australia and the person who came back 4 months later, they're two different people. And my life experience, I feel, has benefited massively. And I feel that my other skills, people skills or organisation skills, they've been hounded and honed over, you know, this past 13 years or whatever. And they've actually given me probably 100 times more on my investment, you know, of that $17,000. I've got it back 1 million times through the experience.
Nice.
So Eloise and I decided in 2019 that we were going to go back to France. It was the year I was turning 30, and it was like the last year that you could ever do a working holiday visa for France. So I thought, okay, pack everything up, we're going to France. Now, y'all know what happened. COVID hit a year later, and so we were over there and we got, quote, stuck in France for, it was almost 3 years. We were supposed to be gone for a year, and we were over there for 3. And during COVID, we all got locked down. You know, France had some amazing schemes in place that would give people a little bit of a salary if their job was affected by COVID, which ours were. And so I had all this free time on my hands, so I'm picking up all these books and starting that reading journey. And then fast forward a little bit further, we're back in Australia now, and I've got, you know, essentially the first stable job that I'd had in, you know, the 3 years of COVID life. And I'm earning a fantastic salary. I've got all of the perks and wonderful things that, you know, I'd always wanted for myself. You know, big salary, that means that I can be really secure and, you know, I can have all the nice things and whatever that I wanted. So I thought, okay, we've got to do responsible things with this money. And so we were then clients with PRE. So we went to that webinar, we signed up with Megan, and Megan's got us straight on the ball. And in the meantime, we'd purchased our little unit here in Sherwood in Brisbane. And we purchased, and I don't know if this is valid, but, you know, between Alo and I, our salaries, we could borrow X amount, right?
Yeah.
But we didn't want to max out the borrowing capacity, because we thought all we need is a place for us to live. We just need 4 walls. And this is our existence as a couple. You know, we get as much benefit out of sharing, you know, a $5 bucket of chips at the, you know, local whatever than having a massive 7-course degustation somewhere, you know. So we can be incredibly frugal, and I think that's probably my life experience rather than his. Like, being very, very frugal is very important. So we thought, we're going to save as much as we can. We're not going to max out our borrowing capacity. We bought this little unit, but we still had a lot of money sitting then in our offset, and that's when we thought we can act right now to purchase the second property, which we have, and it's the off-the-plan strategy.
Yes.
So it's not settling until Q2 2026. So
Nice.
We've got time to save up for the buffer that's going to help us get across the line and all of that. And God, it feels good knowing that there's a plan in place and that it's going to have benefits and we're going to reap the rewards in many years to come. Yeah. It's just a beautiful property. Casa Tranquilla is where it is in Melbourne, in Hampton East.
Yep, beautiful.
It's more fancy than our place here, you know, like it's a beautiful place. Yeah. So that's where we're at now, and I'm honestly biting at the bit to get the next one. But my lovely coach Megan and James, I've got to consolidate because I've obviously changed roles now. Would not change it for the world. I'm so much happier where I am here. And, you know, it's funny, I never thought to pursue a career in real estate this whole time. I was doing other things. I wanted to do, this is going to sound really, and I'm saying it non-filtered, I wanted to do a noble pursuit. So I was working in mental health, right? Nice. I got a job in a mental health company, and I thought I can give back to the community through working in mental health. People like my dad won't struggle maybe for as long to get back to the life that they had, or any mental health issues. I used to see the statistics and it would just blow my mind at how many people, especially young people in the digital age, that are struggling. It's just so prevalent. Yeah, and so crazy. I thought I want to do something noble, but then at the end of the day, it just didn't sit right either. And speaking with Aloe, he said, you know, why don't you try real estate? You always talk about it. You're always looking at, you know, floor plans. Perfect Saturday for me, wandering down the street, seeing all the open homes and checking them out, just walking around, who's there, what, how close is it to the shops, you know, what's it look like, when was it built, who lives here, how much do they earn? And now I pinch myself that this is my job now. I just can see myself having such a fulfilling and more fulfilling impact as well for myself and the people that I help out through working in real estate. I'm just so passionate about it.
Aww. Well, I mean, that's an awesome way to wrap it up, really. I think you couldn't have tied a bow on it any better than that. I have my normal podcast question, which I am going to ask you just because I have to ask everybody. It's just the thing. But what a fantastic way to tie up your journey. And, you know, myself and the team are so thrilled to have you on board. Many of you guys that are clients of Positive Real Estate will hear from Emily, I'm very sure. She is working with the coaches and learning her role, and there's a lot to learn, as you know. The coaching role is very broad, from technology to working with clients and coaching to understanding the fundamentals and economics of the market. And, you know, there's a wealth of stuff to learn, which I know you'll get your teeth into really quickly. So keep an eye out and an ear out for Emily. You'll see her around the traps. I think she's already posted on Facebook for us, which is awesome. And but I do want to ask you, just as the final question, tell me, if you could go back to young Emily and knowing what you know today, what advice would you give to Emily at 19, 20? What would you say to Emily?
Oh, gosh, you know, knowing what I know now, there are two parts to it. Like, be really, really be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, life throws a lot at you, and each person's experience is relative.
Yep.
What is a massive blip on your radar is nothing for someone, or vice versa.
True.
Compassion towards yourself and compassion towards others is so important. And, you know, I wouldn't tell Emily to do anything different. You know, that Emily, she was where she was at because of her life experience. And I don't play with the idea of, you know, what if, you know. There's obviously the question of, you know, would I trade that, for example, that deposit for the trip? No, I would never trade it, ever. Even if I hadn't met Aloe, I still would have spent it. Or I would have spent it in some way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think for me the main thing is be compassionate and gentle with yourself and gentle with others. And you'll get to the place that you need to be if you're willing to put in the work to prepare your soul and your, I don't want to get too flimsy, but, you know, I am where I am today because I've sought out education, or I've had a lot of introspection. Think about who you are as a person and why you make the choices that you do. Try and step outside of yourself and look at you from an outside point of view. Are you in the best place that you want to be in? Have you given your all? Is giving your all enough? So, yeah, just you're your own person. You're on this journey of life literally with yourself the whole time. So, you know, whatever benefits you can do for yourself, whether it's health or education or surrounding yourself with the right people, you as a person are the one who's going to benefit, and then you pass that on to others. So look after yourself first, and then work on yourself, and then project that out to everyone else and the community and what you can do for others then. Yeah.
Love it.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
It's very true. And, you know, we are all big proponents of self-development, whatever that looks like. Everybody has a guru or an idea or something they resonate with. It's different for everybody. It's never one size fits all. And sometimes it's just that thing at that time that is right.
That's right.
But, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being such an open book, because I do believe these conversations are important, and they do help people understand people's mental health journeys. Benny did get tongue twisted, and B, you know, if you're in that space at the moment, please reach out. There are plenty of people that care, and there is plenty of support out there. And I'll get the team to put some phone numbers and contact details up for all of that stuff as well at the end of the podcast. So thanks, Em. That was really appreciated. And all the best with the rest of your property journey. But now that you're a part of the team, I get to see that as well, one-on-one, not just Megan and James. And we love to see our team thrive and invest here at Positive Real Estate. So super excited for what comes next.
Thanks, Tabitha. I'm so happy to be here. Really pinching myself. So can't wait.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, folks. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
See you in another fortnight.
Support and resources are available 24/7 in Australia at lifeline.org.au or 13 11 14 and beyondblue.org.au or 1300 22 4636.
Hey, thanks for listening to Property Investor Tales. Remember to subscribe so you get notified every time a new episode drops. As you can guess, I love hearing people's property investor tales. So if you'd like to share yours, then please get in touch with me via email at propertyinvestortales@positivementor.com.au. We would also love your feedback, and I would appreciate a 5-star review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Remember, you can watch all of these podcasts over on YouTube at Positive Mentor, or at positivementor.com.au. Until then, take care, happy investing, and bye for now.